Good morning, I'm Gretchen Ho. It is Thursday, the 27th day of February, bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matter. Let's get to the stories that matter today. Interior Secretary John Vic Remulla confirmed the recent kidnapping of a 14-year-old international student in Taguig City. And the plot twist, Remulla revealed the suspects are part of a syndicate involved in POGO operations. 8 candidates from the administration's Senate slate Alyansa para sa Bagong Pilipinas enter the top 12 of the latest social weather station survey. Now, leading the poll is ACT-CIS Representative Erwin Tulfo. Stay tuned as we discuss recent issues and politics with former COA Commissioner and Senatorial candidate Heidi Mendoza. And senior Vatican official Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle led prayers for Pope Francis at St. Peter's Square. Welcome to our program, Morning Matters, where we talk about the issues you need to know for the rest of your day. Now, first on our agenda. Senate President Cheese Escudero orders offices in the upper chamber to prepare for the impending impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. Escudero made the directive via a special order, specifically seeking the organization of administrative support to the Senate sitting as an impeachment court. Now, under the document, the roles of the Senate Secretary as Clerk of Court and the Senate Legal Counsel as Deputy Clerk were outlined. The tasks of the Senate Sergeant-at-Arms have also been listed and identified. Special Order number 2025-015 was signed by Escudero himself, dated February 20, 2025. Authorities said a syndicate involved in Philippine offshore gaming operations before was behind the kidnapping of a 14-year-old student in Taguig City. Here's the story.
A 14-year-old student from exclusive school in Taguig City has been rescued after being abducted. Interior Secretary John Vic Remulla said the student was kidnapped at 3:45 p.m. on February 20. The student was supposed to go home at 2:40 p.m. but never arrived. The parents reported the kidnapping the next day. Authorities later found the vehicle that picked up the student in San Rafael, Bulacan, but the driver had been killed. Inside the vehicle, investigators discovered evidence including pictures and duct tape that could yield fingerprints. The kidnappers demanded $20 million ransom, but the parents refused to pay. On Saturday, February 22, kidnappers released a video showing one of the boy's fingers being cut. It was at this point that the parents asked for proof of life.
Pinakita yung bata na kumakanta ng paboritong awitin ng kanyang nakababatang kapatid. Kumanta yung bata, nakangiti naman, at nakita na, at mula sa video niya ay mukhang in good health.
By Monday, the anti-kidnapping group tracked the suspect's location through their cell phone signal, leading to a hot pursuit operation. At around 8 p.m., authorities found the student in Parañaque.
The choice was pursuing the vehicle or securing the child. Obviously, ang AKG, inuna yung bata. Kinuha yung bata, dinala sa ama, at nireconcile namin lahat.
Investigators believe that the kidnapping is linked to POGO operations.
Initially po, ang isa sa miyembro ng pamilya po ay dati pong involved sa business ng POGO na kung saan ang pinag-uusapan po nila yata yung pagbabayad ng mga hindi na mababayarang utang. Wala pong nireport si Director AKG tungkol sa previous involvement. Ang sinabi lang po, tinitingnan din po yung anggulo natin ng Chinese versus Chinese.
While authorities have identified the kidnappers, no arrest had been made yet. Since January 8, kidnapping cases had been recorded, with 5 already solved.
Still on the topic of POGOs, the Bureau of Immigration has deported 98 Chinese POGO workers, most of whom were recently apprehended at a scam hub in Parañaque. According to the BI, the Chinese embassy arranged the chartered flight to China. Now, of the 98 individuals, 91 were amongst the 450 people arrested on January 8 at a commercial building in Parañaque, while the other 7 had been held at the BI detention facility in Taguig. The agency has been fast-tracking deportations since the POGO ban took effect at the beginning of the year. Nearly half of all foreign nationals taken into custody this year have been deported. But the BI acknowledges that processing them demands substantial government resources.
The longer they stay, the more resources the government has to allocate for their custody. This is why we take the fastest available option for their departure. Our priority is to clear them out as quickly as possible.
Authorities raided a mega scam hub inside a mid-rise condominium in Pasay City. POGO workers were caught using text blasters and other equipment for scamming. The scam hub was shut down but appeared to be continuously going back to operations. Now, at least 300 POGO workers were apprehended, including foreigners from China and Vietnam. The scam hub was located near the offices of the Bureaus of Investigation and Immigration. Don't go away. More on Morning Matters when we return. Welcome back. You're still with us here on Morning Matters on One News.
Bilang Pilipino, bilang Pilipino.
8 candidates from the administration-backed Alyansa para sa Bagong Pilipinas remain in the top 12 of the latest social weather station Senatorial survey. ACT-CIS Representative Erwin Tulfo continues to lead the poll with 45% voter preference. Now, trailing behind are re-electionist Senators Bongo and Lito Lapid, followed by former Senate President Tito Soto and broadcaster Ben Tulfo. Senator Bong Revilla saw a significant jump in rankings, moving from 11th place last month to a tie for 6th to 7th with re-electionist Senator Pia Cayetano. Now, completing the top 12 are re-electionist Senator Bato de la Rosa, former Senators Ping Lacson and Manny Pacquiao, Makati Mayor Abby Binay, and TV host Willie Revillame. The poll, conducted from February 15 to 19, interviewed 1,800 registered voters nationwide. Now, to talk about this and to further discuss the latest survey, we have with us on the show political scientist Julio Tihanki joining us via Zoom. Magandang umaga. Welcome to Morning Matters.
Magandang umaga, Gretchen. Good morning. Congratulations on your new show.
Thank you.
And thanks for having me.
Okay, Professor, let's take a look at the latest
Yes.
SWS survey. This was dated February 15 to 19. After the start of the national campaign period, what stood out for you?
Oh, well, we're just a month into the official campaign period for the Senate, for the senatorial midterm election. And the latest SWS strat-based survey on the senatorial election is consistent, no, in terms of the early favorites, just like in the previous SWS strat-based surveys, and also consistent with the other results of the other survey firms, no. You know, the advantage of having at least multiple polling firms doing this is that we can verify and we can cross-check. And we can see some early patterns with regard to at least the first 5 consistently topping the polls thus far, in the early round of the midterm campaign. So far, we have the consistent top 5 candidates, and they also performed well in the other survey results, in the past months, leading to the official launch of the campaign. So the consistent top-notcher is, of course, Congressman Party List Representative Erwin Tulfo, and then Bongo, Lito Lapid, Tito Soto, and Ben Tulfo. And then we can also say that there are the next 5, the competitive candidates who are somehow there, but their rankings and their survey results are somehow turbulent, because they go up and down. Like, for example, Bong Revilla, who's been a consistent top-notcher in previous elections, is surprisingly underperforming, in the early surveys. So his numbers have risen and then fallen drastically. And then, of course, you have Pia Cayetano, Ping Lacson, Abby Binay, Manny Pacquiao, and Bato de la Rosa. But what we can say is that there are very good performers who are rising. No? They were at the bottom of the heap, and then their numbers are consistently going up, and at a very, very consistent and well-managed pacing. No? Like, for example, Willie Revillame. No? And, of course, Kiko Pangilinan is also making some headway. The precarious ones are those who surprisingly have spent so much already in the campaign, and yet they have failed to enter the Magic 12. No? And these are brand names by themselves. No? Like, for example, Senator Amy Marcos, and then Camille Villar, Benhur Tulfo, Benhur Abalos, who has been guesting in practically all the teledramas, and and yet he has failed to enter the Magic 12. And then, of course, incumbent Senator Francis Tolentino and independent candidate Bam King.
Okay. You talked about the top five, the consistent top five. Would there be
Yes.
a common link amongst them as to, to probably provide an explanation as to why they're topping the surveys?
Yes. Of course, we know that these are established political brands. No? They're either re-electionists or comebacking candidates, except for the Tulfo brothers. No? And the Tulfo brothers is, of course, an outcome of the Tulfo phenomenon, which is also an indication of the growing influence of social media. And we have seen this in the previous electoral cycle in 2022, in which Senator Raffy Tulfo made it to the top of the senatorial election. And he indeed represented a phenomenon based on his popular public service program, both on social media and on legacy media. So, and then you have also the right mix of air, ground, and social media campaign. So, for example, with Senator Bongo, while he is identified with the opposition, the de facto opposition as of now, the Duterte-led opposition, he is, of course, identified with the former President Duterte, but he has established his own network of malasakit centers, of which has helped him a lot in his re-election bid.
Well, Professor, a curious case to me is Senator Lito Lapid. In another survey, medyo bumaba siya. Pero dito nasa
Yes.
top 5 siya. I mean,
Yes.
nakikita ko it's the same names in different surveys dun sa top 12, pero paiba-iba yung pwesto, ano? Does that
Yeah.
indicate, the volatility of this list that
Yes.
anything could change in the next months?
Definitely, no. We are just in the early part of the campaign, no. Kumbaga sa palabas nasa first act pa lang tayo, no, at wala pa tayo sa main event, no. So ang kailangan tignan din natin dito is consistency in terms of messaging and narrative, no. The reason why the top 5 have been consistent is because they have been consistent with their branding, no, and their messaging. And there is no dissonance between what they project to the public and who they really are. No? So there's some authenticity, perhaps, no, which is a very major currency now in the world of social media. No? You have to be organic, you have to be authentic. No? Pag nakita ng taong bayan or ng mga botante na hindi ka totoo at plastic at hindi consistent yung messaging mo, medyo nadedehato ka. No? So, especially now that the name of the game really has become winnability, no, Gretchen, no? In the past kasi, we keep on saying that the midterm election is a referendum on the incumbent. That may have been true during the very first midterm election nung post-EDSA 1, no, nung 1995 midterm election, and even during the 2007 midterm election at the height of the Hello Garci. So that was a referendum on the legitimacy of the GMA campaign. But since 2010, the natural trend in terms of senatorial campaigns and elections has always been winnability. No? Ang consistent na naglaland sa top 5 at more or less, if you are in the top 5, no, medyo secured ka na, no? At medyo malaking kamalasan na lang, no? Kung nasa top 5 ka na, top 6 at malalaglag ka pa at hindi ka mananalo.
So medyo
more or less,
shoe-in na itong top 5. Oo. Pero I'd like to
they just
zone
need
in.
to maintain, no? They maintain what they're doing and work harder to keep their positions.
I'd like to zone in on what you call the precarious candidates, Senator Amy
Yes.
Marcos. We have also Congresswoman Camille Villar.
Yeah.
Have they not been consistent? I mean, we see their ads all over. Although si Senator Amy Marcos minsan na naturingang namamangka sa dalawang ilog. But now, in another survey, she actually gained some points because of her probably consistently defending the vice president. I mean, what do you see with these two candidates? And also the number 11 and number 12, that's Manny Pacquiao and Abby Binay.
Of course.
Abby Binay and Willie Revillame, rather.
Really. So, the problem with the Amy Marcos campaign and the Camille Villar campaign is that of mixed messaging. No? So, medyo there's a gap between the perception and the reality. No? For example, Senator Amy Marcos is a Marcos. And yet, she's very critical of her brother, who is the incumbent. And at the same time, she is perceived to be siding with the VP, Sara Duterte, and the Dutertes in general. No? So talagang, dun pa lang, no, mati-turn off na sa'yo yung mga supporters ng kapatid mo. At the same time, hindi ka naman pagkakatiwalaan ng lubusan ng mga supporters ng mga Duterte. So, and at the same time, she's been trying several catchphrases and slogans like yung I Me Solution, no? But it's too dispersed, no? Walang common thread yung narrative niya. Ano ba talaga, di ba? So, kasi hindi naman niya pwedeng sabihin na pagbabalik ng mga Marcos dahil nakabalik na ang mga Marcos, di ba? So, you know, she has to do some course correction. Kasi the same with Camille Villar, no? If you insist on saying that you're bagong boses, bagong mukha, my God, you're a member of one of the top dynasties in the country. No? So, bagong boses, bagong mukha sa loob ng dinastiya, no? So, inconsistent, no? So, kailangan mag-isip-isip sila. Ang masaklap kasi sa kampanya nila, Gretchen, is that they have spent so much already. Hindi pa man nagsisimula yung campaign. If we're going to believe the reports of the Philippine Center for Investigative Journalism, they've spent around $1 billion already or more. And yet, they have failed to land in the top 12. So yun yung dangerous sa position nila. So they still have time to do some course correction. With regard to Willie Revillame, no, we can really see that he has a base. No? He has a base, no? Because of all the years he has been on television in practically all the major networks. So he is consistent. But the problem is, can he maintain his position within the survey on sheer popularity alone? No? So will this be a repeat of the Bong Revilla Buduts, no substance, all entertainment campaign? Or even the Robin Padilla phenomenon of just singing Wonderful Tonight, no? Masusustain ba ni Willie yung ganung klaseng kampanya? Natawa ka, Gretchen.
Hindi, kasi naalala ko ang sinabi niya lately, sa interview namin, sinagot niya na wala pa siyang naiisip na ipapanukalan niyang batas dahil hindi pa naman siya nananalo. Ngayon, sinabi niya, wala nga siyang alam, pero wala siyang alam sa pagnanakaw, pangungurakot, at iba pa. Pero nabanggit niyo na rin yung PCIJ, ano? Let me bring out some graphs that was released by PCIJ, putting together the Pulse and SWS surveys together to establish a trend. So, mukhang wala yata, no? Pero nandun, sa PCIJ, yung pages niya, nakita kasi na parang gumaganon. Ito, nakikita na natin. How do we begin to interpret this? I mean, when we take a look at these surveys and yung meron iba na parang pataas lang, may iba na pa-curve na ganyan. Actually, mostly are like that. So when
Right.
we take a look at this, how do we interpret this?
Buti na lang tinanong mo, no? Because this is an innovation on the part of PCIJ, and I would like to thank PCIJ for coming up with this. But this is nothing new, no? This has been consistent in other elections in other countries. Like, for example, in the United States, you have websites that actually do this. This is called aggregation, no? This is also known as survey of surveys, no? So we have consistently, the two oldest survey firms, no, is SWS and Pulse Asia, and more or less they have been quite accurate, no, in their previous performances, contrary to the detractors, no, medyo consistent. And then you have others, no. So at least trying to aggregate the results and comparing the results of both SWS and Pulse Asia gives us a clear idea of the gives us an idea of whether these survey results are truly reflective of the sentiments of the public. No, remember, surveys. This is has always been the case. No, surveys are snapshots of a particular moment in time, so it has a shelf life. No, so what is important really is to track the ebbs and flows of the survey performances. And then if we verify and cross-check it with another survey firm and several survey results, then we come out with a clearer picture of the authenticity of these polling numbers.
Okay, the COMELEC has just come up with the new rules for surveys that they do need approval from COMELEC before or participating in this. And there's also that perennial argument over the reliability of surveys and its tendency to mind condition. I mean, how do we know which ones are reliable, which ones tell you the real pulse of the nation? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have been looking at SWS surveys and even Pulse Asia surveys for quite some time already, close to 2 to 3 decades. No, SWS being the longest, no, the oldest running survey in the country, and more or less they've been quite accurate in their results. No, so contrary to what others would say that it's rigged or it's part of the cheating machine. It's not. No, I know the people behind these survey firms, and they're solid academics and intellectuals of academic integrity. So, having said that, the other issue, well, it depends. No, like for example, in France, there is a moratorium during the last week or last 2 weeks of a campaign. Surveys are banned. No, I think in other countries in Asia they have adopted that system as well. And then you have also in the United States, free for all. No, in fact, surveys have already, even the mainstream survey firms in the United States have failed to call the first and the second Trump wins. No, medyo nagkamali din sila. No, so yeah, that's the. That's the story. And now COMELEC, of course, being the main constitutional body that has been given the power to oversee elections in the Philippines, has an interest in trying to regulate the release of surveys. But at the same time, there's also that academic freedom because, most of the survey firms are run by academics, no, intellectuals, no, and and then the right of the public to know, no. So you have the COMELEC has to balance, no, the dangers, no, or the fear of mind conditioning at the same time, protecting the freedom of academics to do their surveys and the freedom of the public to know, no, the actual state of play in a particular electoral campaign.
Well, let's talk about another issue that is hanging over the midterm elections, which is the impeachment trial. And of course, that whole debate of when to start it or to delay it after the SONA. How do you think this has influenced the numbers? For example, Octa's survey showed nominal improvement in Duterte's numbers, a +2, and a slight cut in Marcos's numbers, -3. Why do you think that is? Do you think pagdating sa impeachment, ayaw muna pag-usapan niya ng taong bayan, mas matunog ang budget? Ano po ang pulso niyo dito?
Okay. Kasi this is the third time, no? And what most observers and political pundits have failed to see is that we are in the midst of another political crisis. And this is the impeachment. No? First time that a sitting vice president has been impeached. And yet it coincides with the midterm election. This is the third time. The last time this happened was in 2001, no? The midterm election right after EDSA 2. The second time it happened was in 2007, the midterm elections that happened right after the Hello Garci scandal. Now, the first one, the 2001 midterm election, legitimized EDSA 2, no? Because there was a landslide victory for the People Power Coalition. That was the administration slate of then President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. But in 2007, the legitimacy of President Arroyo's second term was questioned, and it was reflected by the almost landslide victory of the opposition, the united opposition. So that was these are examples of political crisis being resolved by a midterm. So this same can be said about the current ongoing impending political crisis, which is the impeachment. Over and above the legal questions that we have to, we have to wait for the Supreme Court to decide on, what is certain is that there are two major blocs who are fighting tooth and nail, no, for political survival. No? So you have, of course, the administration, no, bloc, no, and they have the incumbency advantage, and history is on their side because it's a rule of thumb that in a midterm election, the advantage would always be on the incumbent because they have access to resources and other and the machinery. On the other hand, and they have access to ayuda. No, let us not forget. No, on the other hand, you have an opposition that used to be a member of the coalition, but now standing as the de facto opposition, PDP Laban and the Duterte forces, and yet you still have a very popular former President Duterte and an also popular daughter in the person of Sara, and they are quite popular in their own regional bailiwick in Mindanao and parts of Visayas. So we are seeing this clash of two political elite blocs, no, with two de facto opposition. No, you have the Duterte forces and then the hard left, the Makabayan bloc, and now the former pink yellow forces are positioning themselves as independents.
And I mean, taking a look at that, no, kung may dalawang nag-umpugang bato rito na medyo nakakalito na kasi meron na tayong incumbent, meron tayong opposition, meron tayong alternative opposition, meron pa tayong independent, meron tayong progressives. I mean, does that provide a chance for the so-called independents to break through here and to make a miracle? We have Kiko Panghelinan at number 15, consistently at number 15. Ba Makino 16, 17 naglalaro yan. I mean, what could they take advantage if you were advising them on the campaign trail?
Well, to paraphrase nga yung oft-quoted saying ni Napoleon Bonaparte, no, never disturb your enemies while they're making a mistake. No? So kung ikaw nga, katulad ni Kiko, no, wala ka namang interest kung sino ang mananalo sa umpugan ng dalawang higante, tumabi-tabi ka lang muna and just continue campaigning. No? Yun ang and then the progressives, no, can continue to criticize both, no? Kasi progressives nga sila, no? Especially the Makabayan Bloc, no? That is their role, no? And in fact, they are the alternatives, no? Yung progressives, the reformers, and even the independents. Kasi we have already experienced life under the Dutertes, and then we are experiencing the return of the Marcoses. So if you're the type who's not satisfied with the state of affairs right now in the state of our country, then you have a choice. And if you are one of those voters who are against dynasties, against trapos, against celebrities, then you vote for the non-dynasties, the non-celebrities, the non-trapos.
It seems that that is a whole conversation altogether, which will
Yes.
probably take us a full hour, but we'll take you up on
Yes.
that the next time. In the meantime, maraming salamat for sharing
Maraming
with us
salamat.
your insights and helping us understand the latest survey. We have political scientist Julio Tihanki.
Thank you, Gretchen.
Senatorial Bet Erwin Tulfo says he is ready to face his disqualification cases. Erwin noted, though, that he has not received a copy yet of the latest case filed by a certain Berteni Kausing. Kausing filed a petition to disqualify Tulfo, citing his libel conviction in 2008. He likewise alleged that the senatorial candidate is not a Filipino citizen, as he failed to renounce his U.S. citizenship. A disqualification case was previously filed against Erwin and the other Tulfos, who are said to be members of a political dynasty. Meanwhile, more places may be classified under the red category of areas of concern due to increase in election-related violence. The COMELEC earlier listed 38 areas of concern under the category as they have serious threats of election-related violence. But Chairman George Garcia pointed out that there were more incidents in which local officials and candidates were injured or killed. Designating an area under red category means deploying more government forces to ensure safety. The possible additional areas of concern comes after Datu Piang Vice Mayor Datu Omar Samama was injured after getting shot. Meanwhile, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle of the Philippines led the prayer service for Pope Francis in St. Peter's Square at the Vatican on Wednesday. The prayer service is aimed at showing solidarity and support for the ailing pontiff. The service will be held daily this week. Pope Francis remains in critical condition due to double pneumonia.
Ave Maria, piena di grazia.
Preghiamo per la salute del Santo Padre Francesco, per l'intercessione della Beata Vergine Maria. Padre nostro che sei nei cieli,
si prostrò con la faccia a terra e pregava dicendo:
venga il tuo regno, sia fatta la tua volontà, come in cielo e così in terra.
Maria, Madre di Dio, prega per noi peccatori.
When we return, let's talk about current issues plus politics with senatorial candidate Heidi Mendoza. Don't go away. Morning Matters will be back. I'm Gretchen Ho, and this is Morning Matters. Our guest today is an advocate of good governance and a champion of the procurement reform. Here with us in the studio to talk about issues and more, we have former COA Commissioner and now senatorial candidate Heidi Mendoza. Welcome to our show.
Hi, good morning, Gretchen, and good morning to everyone following and listening to your show.
Okay, so kanina si Professor Tihanki, we had him on the show to talk about the latest survey. Tang sabi niya, itong mga numero natin, mayroong pagkakataon para sa mga independent, sa mga alternative opposition, to break through, batikusin yung dalawang nag-uumpugang bato. I mean, your thoughts, you are number 26 in the latest survey. What are you running on?
First, Gretchen, gusto kong medyo steer yung discussion. Sabi ng kaibigan ko, you should not be treated as the alternative. dapat ikaw yung main candidate, di ba? We're looking for candidates na sasabihin natin na may qualification, di ba? And I think I have that, na? At meron sasabihin hindi nagnakaw. Ako, 27 years, di ba? So why should I be the alternative, di ba? Parang is it an alternative given the fact na resigned na tayo, na ganito yung ating eleksyon, di ba? So second, when I filed my candidacy, I have no expectations. Sa akin, panalo na ako na maitawid ko yung konting-konting pag-asa and to keep that hope alive among ordinary citizens. No? Winning is just the bonus. Yun na lagi kong binibiro. So it's really daring that is the game changer. And I think I'm getting it, di ba? I think that, yes indeed, the campaign itself is tough. It's an uphill battle. But, you know, every time na lumalabas ako, may magpapapicture sa'yo. Hindi lang yon, alam mo, gabi-gabi na lalabas ka for your last meeting. And when you look around, your neighbors are very busy arranging your tarps. And Gretchen, hindi ako masyadong, I'm not giving away tarps. They are the ones producing the tarps for me. So I feel like if we can sustain this, then 2028 election is giving us some hope. And this is exactly why I'm running, right? So, to me, survey is a survey. Yes, it can be a guide, but it doesn't disappoint me. It doesn't dishearten me because at the very least, I know it's a tough battle, and I think I've been used to that.
I think natatawag po kayong alternative dahil pag ikumpara mo sa mga pangalan na nandun sa top 12, kumbaga malalaki na silang political brand.
Totoo.
Oo. Seeing those families, hindi po ba kayo nai-intimidate doon na, in terms of backing, in terms of having political capital, in terms of recall, in terms of awareness, and all of that?
I'm never intimidated Kasi alam ko, meron ako na wala silang lahat.
Ano po yun?
Siyempre, talagang pag sinabi kong hindi ako corrupt, kahit saan kami magtinginan, kahit magbuklatan kami ng bank accounts, no? Kahit maghanapan kami ng lahat ng aking record in the past 27 years, wala. And second, meron ako naiambag. Ilang milyon din yung binalik sa Pilipinas, di ba? Ilan din naman yung kilalang tao na binangga natin ng face-to-face at hindi tayo sumuko sa mga threats and intimidation.
Ano kayo ay naging whistleblower?
And even bribes, di ba? So, I am never intimidated.
Okay, before we get into the meat of your candidacy, let's go first to the top issues of today. Let's talk about confidential funds. The Senate is gearing up for an impeachment trial of which you could be a part of. How do you think this issue is influencing the campaign trail? When you go out there, naiintindihan ba ng mga tao kung ano ang impeachment, kung ano yung debate sa confidential funds? Mahalag ba sa kanila yun? Because on the other side is the budget, the issue of the budget, which is described as the most corrupt budget, one of the most corrupt budgets in history. Ano po yung nagre-resonate pag lumalabas kayo?
Okay, I think somehow, this is my personal view, the issue on the budget, specifically on the PhilHealth, has overtaken the issue on the confidential funds. Pangalawa, the confidential funds has its own technicality, right? In terms of audit, kakaiba yan. And hindi siya madaling maintindihan ng ordinaryong Pilipino.
Parang ano ba yun?
Oo, tapos ang lakas pa nung disinformation na pinakalat yan, di ba? Na, itong audit opinion na ito, ibig sabihin okay na. So wala namang findings sa confidential funds, ano? So parang mahirap siyang maintindihan. But I must admit, every time I go out, lagi akong tatanungin sa confidential funds, intel funds, ano? At ang tanong ko lagi what kind of role do you want me to play? Do you want me to be an expert on the subject matter, who can be called as a witness once the impeachment process begins? Or do you want me to be a senator, a senator judge, right? So, yun yung hinihingi ko sa kanila. If you want me to be one of the senator judges, then campaign for me, di ba? Now, bakit hindi masyadong bumababa yung interest doon sa confidential funds? I think hindi masyadong kumonekta sa tao. Diba? I think that is really
Siguro na pagtawanan lang yung Mary Grace
factor,
Piatos.
Right. It's, in the Philippines, ang nagmamatter talaga ay yung tinatawag nating kumukonekta sa sikmura.
Yung gut issues.
Oo, gut issues. Like halimbawa, pagkain, health, no? And PhilHealth is really tumatawid siya because yung maliliit na tao, yun ang inaasahan di ba? And they have really not so happy experience with PhilHealth, right? So I think, basically, wala naman tayong takot pag sinasagot natin itong mga katanungan na ito, no? And ang nakita ko lang ay parang mas malakas ang traction ng budget issues, ng PhilHealth issues, kasi naintindihan ng tao. Mas madaling maintindihan. Unlike ng confidential and intel.
Okay, the Vice President's team says hindi daw sila nabigyan ng pagkakataon na magpaliwanag muna sa COA. Trabaho daw ng COA, silipin yung confidential funds. Hindi raw trabaho ng Kongreso. Isa pang sinabi nila, this is trial by publicity. Kung may notices of disallowances, dapat hinayaan muna silang mag-respond doon. Being a former commissioner of COA, what can you say to that?
Well, una, sasagutin ko muna yung sinasabing trial by publicity. Lahat ng ino-audit namin, laging ganyan. At magugulat kami, wala naman kami sinasabi, di ba? Lalo na nung auditor ako, no? Bawal kami magsalita. And even those people na nakasuhan namin o na-audit ko, lagi sasabihin, nanghahanap yan ng media attention, etc. Sa akin, no-brainer.
Every time nilalabas po ninyo, yun ang
lagi
sinasagot.
sasabihin na trial by publicity. Now, ito naman yung position ko, no? The Commission on Audit observes due process, from the time na mag-issue ng AOM, to the time na mag-issue ng notice of suspension, to the time na mag-issue ng notice of disallowances. May enough time yan At para sabihin na may due process, nabigyan siya ng enough time. Now, with regards to Congress discussing this at the level of the committee, I think, at ito, personal views ko, I think this is part of the so-called oversight of the budget. Doon naman nila di ba? First, they started with some issues on how did you use your confidential funds, right? And even us, when I was still representing the Commission on Audit in the budget process, together, of course, with the chairperson, we're also being asked, how did you use your funds, right? So the question in terms of asking, how did you use your funds? Of course, kasama yun, yung confidential funds.
Pero meron din
yan.
nag-argue na bakit namin ipapakita kung sino si Mary Grace Piatos? Confidential nga, mga palayaw ito. I mean, at what point does it need to be declared and to inform the public? Hanggang saan yung confidentiality na yun?
Okay, magkaiba yan Ang intelligence funds at confidential funds. Ang confidential funds for surveillance operation na civilian agency, hindi ganong kataas yung tinatawag nating link with national security, diba? Ng especially Department of
Kasi
Education.
mga informants ito.
Ngayon, ang tanong ko dito is this. As head of agency, nakalagay sa guidelines, you are to adopt internal controls that will protect the funds. So as head of the agency, may gagawin ka dyang control. O halimbawa, meron ka listahan ng mga alias, may listahan ka rin nung tunay mong pangalan ng pinagbigyan.
So, kanino pang trabaho yan? Sa COA?
The head of agency.
Head of agency,
Head of agency nung ino-audit. If it is the VP for the office of the Vice President,
so the Vice President's
Secretary,
office needs to give a list of names.
they need to adopt an additional internal control. And one of the control, as is specified in the guidelines, is, of course, the keeping of the journal. A journal which can be subject to inspection of the Commission on Audit or its representative. Kapag may duda ka, di ba? Yes, it's true, pwede kang gumamit ng alias. Pero sabi ko nga, government official ka First and foremost, ang iyong responsibilidad, pangalagaan ang pera. Ikaw, Gretchen, meron kang kaibigan o may ka, pinagkatiwala ka, uy, confidential ito ikaw nang bahala, pero ikaw, you would like to keep your trust. Pwedeng lagyan mo ng halimbawa, pseudonym or etc. Pero you will keep di ba? And you are supposed
So to your knowledge and according to your insider sources, meron po ba nabigay na ganun?
Wala, di ba?
Wala
Hinihingi
talaga.
nga, oo.
Wala talaga.
And I'd like to emphasize, Gretchen, na nandun yan sa guidelines. Ang sabi doon sa guidelines, okay, envelope siya, isasubmit mo yung mga initial documentary evidence or supporting documents. Pero may nakalagay doon na upon demand of the Commission on Audit, meron kang journal na ikinikip mo dapat doon sa vote. Nakalagay yun doon sa guidelines. That you should have a vote.
So not necessarily mabubunyag ito doon sa House hearing?
Not necessarily. Pwedeng inspectionin ng COA.
Pwedeng inspectionin diretso sa COA at executive session ng House? Pwede ba yun i-reveal sa mga congressman natin?
As they please, di ba? At saka walang law. Remember, wala pang law na nagsasabi na hindi ito pwedeng Remember, the Constitution is of course upholding the right of the citizen to information na related sa kanilang welfare and interest, right? So, this is an information. We're talking about information na talagang napakahalaga para sa atin, di ba? So, walang batas na nagsasabing hindi pwedeng sabihin yan. Okay?
Well,
unlike ng intelligence
with your
funds.
experience in COA, has this confidential fund always been prone to abuse? And if you were to be senator, what kind of laws would you create around this to improve the auditing, also the appropriation itself?
Okay, one, it is always subject to abuse because of the large extent of discretion and I would say a different kind of documentation supporting the transaction, okay? If elected senator, one, I will require the entire audit of confidential funds. You know why? Para masabi natin, may basis tayo. Para ma-document natin, ano ang extent ng abuse. Ano-ano yung abusive practices in such a way na ma-profile natin for audit purposes, di ba? Ito usually ang red flags ng ganitong mga paggamit ng confidential funds. That's one. Second, I will move for the creation of an oversight committee within the Senate. Not only composed of senators, pwede kang mag-invite ng tinatawag nating intelligence practitioners. Doon dapat nagre-report. Okay, una pag-uusapan
Dapat meron
muna.
po yun, di ba dapat regulated po yan ng AFP?
Not
At saka
only
ng,
AFP, yung
intelligence,
national security, ano? Pero ang sabi natin, dapat committee yan, di ba? Nang pagkakaiba nito, parang dun sa committee, pag-uusapan nyo, ano yung ating national security plan? Okay, ito yung national security plan. And then tatanungin ko, okay, ikaw, agency A, ano ang mandato mo? Okay, you're asking for confidential funds or intelligence funds, di ba? Titingnan ko muna, anong connect dito sa plano, no? And then we will discuss, ano dapat ang activities na pagproprogramahan ninyo yan. So in that case, merong oversight, nalilinya natin saan gagamitin at nasisiguro natin na yung pondo na binibigay natin sa napakamahalagang bagay such as confidential funds for surveillance of agency operation, such as the Department of Justice, para sa kanilang witness protection, di ba? Kita natin konektado dun sa national plan, di ba? At pwede nating i-measure. Kung halimbawa, sinubmit nila, o eto yung aming liquidation report, no? Remember, at eto yung ini-emphasize ko from the start. Hindi na dapat pumunta ang Congress at Senate sa COA eh. They are supposed to be furnished a copy of the report on the confidential and intel funds, di ba? May copy ang presidente, may copy ang Senate and Congress. Ba't bubusisiin mo pa yung Commission on Audit? Yun naman yung...
So, we had also Congressman Marcoleta here. Sinabi niya, kung bubuksan ninyo itong confidential funds ng Vice President, dapat lahat.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Investigate
Audit
one,
natin.
investigate all.
Ako sa akin, hindi investigate. I-audit. But of course,
Pati
merong
yung sa
basis
Office of
yan.
the President.
Of course. May basis yan. Meron tayong pwedeng sabihing sampling technique. Halimbawa, sampling technique in terms of size. Okay, lahat ng malalaking pwede ka mag-cut off. Lahat ng malalaking intel and confi funds, auditin. And on the basis of that, manggawa tayo ng profile. Yung sinasabi kong gawin natin, iset natin, ano yung red flags?
Pagka
ano yung
ganito,
matters of abuses?
Ito yung sinasite na rason na maaaring makalusot.
Ano yung weaknesses nito? So that, pagdating din sa Senate, pukpukin natin ang Commission on Audit. Hello, 2015 pa. Ako pa yung commissioner doon nung ginawa yung guidelines na yan. Ngayon, 2025, right? 10 years. Hindi pa natin nababago yung guidelines. So, as a senator, kung mananalo, hindi naman ako presumptuous, ang una kong gagawin, mag-create ng committee na siyang magsasala kung uma-align ba yung purpose ng funds na hinihingi nila at yung National Security Plan. Second, para doon sila magre-report at ating i-scrutinize. Ano ang accomplishment nito? Kasi there should be a record in terms of what have you accomplished out of that confidential funds, right? So nandun yun sa committee. And that committee should be the one to scrutinize sino-sinong ahensya ang dapat bigyan ng confi funds, di ba? Kasi ang nangyari, halos lahat kumuha di ba? Yung medyo malakas sa Kongreso at sa Senado, nung hindi pa sila nag-aaway, di ba? Kami na nga yung ingay ng ingay, wag niyong bigyan yan, walang diretsong connection sa mandato, yung surveillance, di ba? Wala, binigyan. Ay, nung nag-aaway,
ang problema, hindi lang po yung confidential funds yung prone to abuse. Meron din pong legal na pamamaraan na nakakakuha ng pera. Katulad ng mga ayuda programs na sinasabi nilang doon na nagpupunta. Pero iyon ay dumadaan na sa proseso at meron ng referral letter. Kahit na dapat sa DSWD yan. Yun ang sinasabi nila. Pero kung kayo po ay paano nyo naman babantayan yun?
Okay. Gretchen, ililinya ko lang para hindi ma-confuse yung listeners natin. Magkaiba ang audit ng confidential funds. Okay? Sabi ko nga, that makes it a little bit subject to abuse, right? Ang audit ng confidential funds ay envelope system. Lalagay mo dun sa envelope and then wala ka pang masyadong resibo
Kaliwaan.
until after kung magduda ang COA and then i-demand niya, okay? Dito sa AIX and ACAP, may audit yan. It passes to the resident auditor. Ang confidential and intel hindi dumadaan sa resident auditor. So ang ibig sabihin, yung auditor nandun sa ahensya. Madali niyang makita. Pwede niyang sundan. With everything that is ongoing with regards to AIX and with regards to ACAP, then the auditor must already be planning ano ang gagawin kong audit to make sure that this is protected from the so-called abuses. No? If elected as senator, anong gagawin ko? Una, yung oversight sa budget. Kailangan, hindi tayo dapat pumapayag na ito ang budget na binigay ng presidente, ito ang budget na inapprove ng Kongreso. Napakalayo doon sa tinatawag nating proposed budget, di ba? Yung
insertions na sinasabi nila.
Tumataas yung insertion.
Dito sa budget.
That's one. Oo. Pangalawa, yung BICAM report, kailangan nakikita ng public yan. Diba? Lalong-lalo na kung masyadong malaki ang diferensya. Unahin muna natin, yung presidente naman, bakit hindi mo naman tinatanong? Ito yung budget ko, ito yung priority ko, ito yung national development ko. Bakit ngayon na iba? Diba? Ang laki ng idinagdag nila, pero yung malaking dagdag, na itsapuera yung
ano
basic
masabi
na
niyo sa mga
pangangailangan.
blanco, mga blanks in the budget? I mean, do you think there's something wrong there or was it part of the process? Nagko-compute lang daw sila bago ito ipasa.
I have no opportunity to check on that. How I wish I have.
Dapat nakita po ninyo. Oo, mismo.
However, parang kaduda-duda yung mga tinatawag nilang blanco. Kasi ang ibig sabihin nun, ang laki ng extent of negotiation, di ba? Kaya pumapayag na blanco muna habang nag-uusap pa, di ba? So, and besides, yung practices na may mga blanco, ang tawag natin dyan red flags Parang katulad din ng ACAP. Ang daming
ano po ang red flags doon na nakikita po ninyo?
Ang daming nagme-message sa akin sa ACAP. Ang sasabihin nila, Ma'am, kumuha po ako ng ACAP, pero pinapirma po ako walang amount, walang date. Ang ibig sabihin, bakit walang amount? Pwede nilang gawing 5,000, pero 3,000 lang ang tinanggap. Di ba? Bakit walang date? Pwedeng iiwasan nila na kunyari binigay bago mag-eleksyon, pero actually binigay ngayong election time. Pero iba-backtrack nila yung date, di ba? Bakit ito red flags? Basta may blanco, may red flags yan. Kasi ang ibig sabihin nun, if-fit mo yung information na ilalagay mo dun sa blank, doon sa karapat-dapat may sulat.
Hindi po ba iinit lang ang ulo ninyo pag kayo ay napasok dito? I mean, right now, you're already telling us so many red flags. I'm sure dadami pa po yan pag kayo po ay naupo. And how do you take the heat? I'm sure they will not be pleased with
I'm sure they will not be pleased, but they are not the ones I'm serving, right? I have been asked.
And how do you, how do you work within your office to actually put guardrails when we know politics is about getting the numbers?
To me, I have always been, trying to be effective in a situation where I am placed, right? To me, madali ako mag-adjust. But there's one thing, Gretchen, that I have in mind. For example, sabi ko, hanggat maaari, stop natin yung PDAF. Kasi, remember, ang hirap ng buhay, tapos inaabuso ang funds. However, kung manalo ako, hindi naman wala ka agad PDAF, kasi papasok ka pa lang. Ang una kong gagawin, if I can report publicly every projects that I have funded out of my PDAF, every output or every accomplishments, and then merong third party who will monitor the implementation of my projects, hindi ba mahihiya yung kasamahan ko na hindi nila gawin yan? Kung hindi sila mahiya, okay din. Pero bago dumating ang eleksyon, hindi ba pwedeng singilin ng tao? Nagawa nga ni Mendoza na ilabas sa publiko kung saan napunta ang PDAF. Ano ngayon? This will become an election issue, di ba? Panagutin natin sila, hamunin natin sila. Labasan tayo kung saan ginawa yung PDAF. So yun yung sinasabi kong kahit mag-isa ka, may kaya kang gawin. Alam mo, kahit isa lang, malaking kabawasan basta hindi ka magnanakaw. Di ba? Yun At bubuhayin natin yung mga public servants yung nagtatrabaho sa gobyerno. Kasi marami nagtatrabaho sa gobyerno, tumitingin lang sa taas. Sila yung isasabi na, sabi ko na nga ba, hindi lahat
Pero sabi po
magnanakaw
nila,
sa
hindi ka
gobyerno.
mananalo sa politika pag wala kang pera na kaya mong maipamigay sa mga tao. I mean, how do you go against the grain and still get to office
Okay, I'll give you an example. When I was with the Commission on Audit, yun din, tight yung budget, di ba? So what we did, nakipag-contract ako with development partners. Kami nag-audit ng mga projects ng OSAID, USAID. Ang lalaki ng contracts niya, no? And then, binigay kong bonuses and allowances ng COA. Aliw na aliw sila, di ba? I know how to incentivize people the right way. Now, paano yung pakikipag-usap sa politiko? Ganyan din naman nun di ba? Commissioner ako, in-issue namin yung PDAF, hindi ako ma-confirm, di ba? Dahil maraming galit. Pero, awa ng Diyos, nadaan sa dasal. At ito yung tinatawag nating the power of the people. Doon ako malakas. Kaya humaharap ako, sinasabi ko sa mga tao. Just like now, konti lang yung budget ko. Humihingi ang mga tao ng tarpaulin. Sabi ko, pwede bang kanya-kanyang print? Kung nagawa ko yung mga tao na itulak para kanya-kanyang print, hindi ko ba kayang itulak ulit yung mga tao at sabihin kong, samahan niyo ako. Ito ang gagawin ko, ilalabas ko ang listahan ng PDAF ko, kayo ang mag-o-audit kung paano pinagawa, igagawin kong public. Samahan niyo ako na ito ang maging
Are you
practice.
also willing to declare those who are supporting you, saan po nanggagaling ang yung budget ngayon sa pangkampanya?
Wala ho akong private, nakakatawa nga
Puro sa
dahil
inyo
lagi
po yun.
sinasabi, meron daw ako secret donor. Sabi ko, sige, pakitaan tayo ng bank accounts. Okay, it's partly my money, my friends' donation, at ito yung kakaiba. Yung donasyon, volunteerism ng mga estudyante, ng mga tricycle driver, you will be touched, Gretchen. I'm keeping the messages. Tricycle driver, mag-aambag ng 200. O sasabihin, ma'am, pwede ba akong magpa-print kahit 4 na tarps lang? Estudyante, magpapadala ng 40 pesos. Ma'am, ito po yung natipid ko sa baon. If you can move people towards this, and you are inspiring hope, hindi ako takot lumaban
Bakit po pagiging senador ang gusto ninyo? Kasi some would say that your expertise is in auditing. Why the Senate? Why not go back to COA? Why not have, COA has its own power in itself.
I cannot go back to COA, tapos na yung term ko di ba?
Wala na yun.
Okay, halimbawa, ito yung doon Hindi ako bumabalik sa service just because gusto ko ng sweldo or gusto kong may gawin. I'm feeling in a need, right? To be honest, Gretchen, hindi yabang to. Kung tumakbo ako sa party list, kaya kong manalo. That is without no? Pero hindi yun yung pangangailangan di ba? Ang pangangailangan natin, dadalwa yung ikakampiyan niya natin sa Senado, di ba? And the same effort yung gagawin ko di ba? Ang intention ko nun, mga panya lang, just like what I did in 2022, di ba? Pero right now, dadalwa yung ikakampanya mo at wala pang malinaw na boses na tatayo in between kadiliman and kasamaan. That's why I chose to run in the Senate, di ba? Hindi ko lang po gustong manalo. Gusto ko pong itayo ang advokasya na may pag-asa pa at kaya nating labanan ng katiwalian, kaya nating tumakbo kahit walang pera, kaya nating manalo kung tutulungan tayo ng bawat Pilipinong nagmamalasakit sa bayan.
I do feel a lot of your passion in this, and certainly you do know the ins and outs of how the money is spent. We have a senatorial candidate here, Heidi Mendoza, running on an anti-corruption platform. Maraming salamat for sharing your time with us this morning on Morning Matters. And that's it for today's episode of Morning Matters. My name is Gretchen Ho. We're One News, all sides, all the time.